Alright, so Anthony on Paper Smith has finally hung up the gloves after once again being left in a pool of his own blood at UFC Kansas. And this, my friends, marks the end of what is arguably the most mediocre yet inexplicably celebrated career in UFC history. And yes, I realize that sounds pretty harsh, but let's just call it what it is. Smith has always been aggressively average, he's never been truly elite, yet he's constantly hyped up by the UFC machine as some sort of contender who's always 1 or 2 wins away from his next title shot. I'm gonna try to not be too mean throughout this video because I don't love the idea of roasting a man who just retired on a loss, but I really feel like I need to say what's on my mind here about Smith and his lackluster UFC career. But first, as always, let's talk about the fight itself. Honestly, I didn't know that Smith's opponent Zhongming Yang even existed before this fight was made, so I was pretty optimistic that he could retire on a win, but it looks like my optimism was misplaced. There's really no way to sugarcoat this one. Smith got slaughtered in all areas of the fight, and he got finished in the first round for the first time since 2013. You know, there's always that unmistakable moment in all of Anthony's losses where you can literally see him start to give up, and in this one it's at exactly 2:24 on the clock, right after Anthony eats like the 7th elbow to the face. He ends up going for a desperation takedown that Zhang easily defends, which brings us to Anthony's signature move, the legendary turtle shell technique. We've all seen it. It's the trick that Anthony pulls whenever he's getting beat up, where he completely curls up into a ball and just hopes for the best. This was a classic Anthony Smith performance where it feels like he's just improvising his way through the fight, and when he realizes that he's outgunned, he just quits.
Body, oh no! The blood's bothering Smith. He's getting in his eyes. Another low kick. He's quitting. He's quitting. Elbows, he's quitting. He's visibly quitting here. Elbows from Ming Yang Zhang again. Oh my god, he's gonna curl up in a ball. Oh my god, he's doing it. He's doing it, chat. He's on his knees. He's in a ball on the ground, chat.
Like, I don't understand. Does Anthony not like game plan before his fights? Does he even train before his fights? The guy just doesn't seem to be at all prepared for any of his opponents ever, even in the fights where he wins. Most of his victories in the last few years have been when his opponents make some brain-dead move that Smith capitalizes on and ends up catching them in a submission. And seeing as the guys he's beaten in the last 5 years have been Vitor Petrino, Ryan Spann, Jimmy Crute, and Devin Clark, I can't really find myself being all that impressed by the pedigree of fighters that he's been able to squeak out wins over lately. I mean, it's not like he's a terrible fighter or anything. He did have a winning record in the UFC, but honestly, the guy's just mid at best. Anyways, I am happy that Smith was given his little video package send-off where we all got to relive his mediocre highlights spanning his illustrious 13-11 UFC career, because I really do think that any fighter who spent more than a decade in the promotion should get one of these whenever they retire in the cage. However, can someone explain to me why Anthony Smith gets this sort of honorable departure from the promotion, meanwhile guys like, oh, Stipe Miocic literally get nothing? Friendly reminder here, when Stipe retired at UFC 309, which we all knew he was going to do regardless of the result, the UFC didn't prepare shit for this guy. Stipe's probably the best heavyweight in the history of the company, and yet Dana's dumbass thinks Anthony Smith's retirement is more deserving of the fireworks and parades than Stipe's was. Even Michelle Watterson got her own video package, and she went 6-9 throughout her UFC career. What sort of bullshit is this? This guy's entire UFC career is so artificially propped up by the UFC marketing team to the point where there's even talk of Smith being inducted into the Hall of Fame now that he's retired.
Is Smith a Hall of Famer?
I mean, what do you give him Hall of Fame for? Respectfully.
I mean, 38 wins, 21 first-round finishes sounds pretty.
Yeah, but it's not 38 wins in the UFC. With that said, him being in the UFC, he's had a great run, but I don't know if it's... I mean, is there a fight that you could give him a Hall of Fame fight for, like they have done with Izzy and Kelvin Gastelum? You could maybe do something like that, but I don't know if he has any of those fights.
He was 13-11, so, in the UFC.
I mean, yeah, so, I mean, is that... Do you give him a UFC shot from that?
Nah,
I mean, a Hall of Fame shot from
no.
that? I don't know.
Let's get down to brass tacks here. The biggest reason for Smith being in the UFC's good books comes down to him being a textbook company man. Whether it's publicly defending the UFC's fighter pay structure, talking down to fighters who criticize the UFC, or siding with Dana no matter the situation, Smith made himself an asset to the company by always staying loyal. The way I see it, Anthony's entire UFC run can basically be summed up as a bizarre cycle of lukewarm performances versus inflated promotion. Honestly, his most significant career moment and the defining point of his whole legacy was his one-sided loss to Jon Jones at UFC 235, where he refused to win the belt by getting Jones disqualified. I'm not even exaggerating. When people look back at Anthony's career, they will literally remember him best for the noble decision of not taking a DQ win against Jones. That's basically Smith in a turtle shell, I mean nutshell, being praised for moral victories instead of actual fighting success. And for what it's worth, I absolutely think he should have taken the DQ win. He would have become champion, he would have gotten the rematch against Jones, he would have gotten the pay-per-view points as champion, and then made more money than he's ever seen in his life.
Because he would have won, became champ, obviously by DQ, But he would have got a huge payday in a rematch, automatic rematch with Jon Jones, where he would have then got pay-per-view points. And he would have had enough information on Jon Jones where now, before his losing streak started, I think back then at that time, he would have been in a much better fighting position where he could have actually tried to make some adjustments and give Jon a run for his money in the second time. Because he did a bunch of podcasts afterwards. He was saying, I would love to fight him again. I understand like a lot of the stuff he's doing now, and I really do think I could beat him. And I'm like watching the first fight, and I'm like, I'm not quite sure what fight you were in or watch back on the tape that makes you feel that way.
Now that I think about it, I feel like Smith not taking the DQ win is exactly why the UFC gave him preferential treatment for the remainder of his UFC run. Dana was probably really grateful that Smith didn't take the belt from his Pookie Bear Jones, and he's been doing Anthony a solid ever since. Because against all logic and reasoning, they have promoted him as a serious contender, which doesn't make any damn sense seeing as he's gone 6-8 since fighting Jones. Even when Smith got dismantled by actual contenders like Magomed Ankalaev or Khalil Roundtree, the UFC still insisted that he was still in the running for title contention. I mean, let's not forget that Smith's title shot was given to him off a 3-fight win streak, where 2 of those wins were over the 2018 versions of Shogun Rua and Rashad Evans, who were way past their primes when they fought him. Both guys were literal shells of their former selves by the time that Anthony faced them, yet these wins were marketed by the UFC as monumental achievements. All of a sudden, Smith was being promoted as this ruthless finisher and the dark horse of 205 who could actually give Jones a run for his money. Even when it comes to Anthony's best win, which I think is probably Alexander Gustafsson, Alex was also well past his prime when they fought. And when matched against real contenders in their prime, Smith reliably crumbled under pressure. Every fight that this guy is in where he's not able to match his opponent's intensity always devolves into him getting punched in the face repeatedly before curling up into the fetal position. In his fights against Alexander Rakic, Glover Teixeira, and Roman Dolidze, Smith spent more time curled up in a ball than he did throwing any meaningful offense. The irony of this guy nicknaming himself Lionheart when my initial reaction to hearing his name is the image of him doing his best armadillo cosplay is crazy. Frankly, I feel like TJ Dillashaw described Anthony Smith the best when he had this to say about him here.
TJ, the most asked question on our Jackson podcast, do we think Anthony Smith has what it takes to be a light heavyweight world champion?
Never.
No.
Dude, I just don't, he's not good enough.
Tough to say.
Like he gives up. Like, have you
Lionheart? Lionheart?
I've watched him game as
Lionheart.
No, his name is Lionheart.
Lionheart. What is the nickname?
Would he give himself that?
It means to be with a lion.
Did he give himself that name or what?
Oh my God,
I mean,
TJ.
he gives up in there, bro.
Wow.
Look, man, I don't want to go too much into the whole delusional Anthony Smith stuff because I feel like I've talked about it enough in previous videos. But honestly, if this guy wasn't such a sore loser whenever he lost a fight fair and square and actually just owned up to his losses instead of downplaying his opponent's skills, I'd probably think a bit more highly of him. But like clockwork, whenever Anthony's lost a fight after turtling up for half the fight, he's always come back a couple weeks later to say that on paper he was the better fighter.
What's your issue with your performance specifically in the Jon fight?
I just didn't show up, and Jon Jones is beatable. I'm gonna get roasted online for this, but he's not that good.
That's an interesting quote. Yeah,
he's pretty fucking good. If you take his individual skill sets and you take them away, each one of those things are not a problem. It's when you put them together and he puts it into the full package that it's the problem. His fight IQ is not crazy high.
With all this being said, man, Smith retires with a legacy built not on significant victories, but on the relentless insistence by the UFC marketing machine that he was better than reality indicated. His career serves as a stark reminder that being aggressively average can still land you in the spotlight, assuming that the right marketing narrative is spun around you. As Anthony Smith steps away from fighting, I gotta say that I'm a little bit relieved that I don't have to watch this guy fight on main cards anymore. But at the same time, a part of me is going to miss watching him talk up a big game leading into his fights, only to cower in fear against the cage once he realizes his opponent knows how to fight. On paper, Anthony Smith might have been the best fighter that's ever lived, but in reality, he's just your average journeyman that was given an undeserved spotlight from Dana and the UFC. Anyways, that's the video for today. Definitely let me know what you think about Anthony Smith retiring. Do you think that I'm too harsh in saying all of this, or do you agree that he failed to capitalize on every given undeserved opportunity that was given to him? As always, if you like the video, then like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
You just say Hall of Fame? He's a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, like he had a Hall of Fame career.
So
like, it doesn't mean he won the title.
would you say you put him in the Hall of Fame with a guy like Jose Aldo and a Anderson Silva or GSP?
Well,
I'm just asking. I'm just saying, like, do you call it the same thing? Clearly, they're not on the same level. But
well,
you're going to say they're both Hall of Famers?
There's once you, it's like, to me, it's like there's a threshold of how great of a career you have to have had to get to the Hall of Fame. And like, I think if you win a title, 99% of people who won a title should just automatically be there. Like
should be a shoe in.
Cause yeah, like you should maybe some guys who won the title, maybe it was kind of like a fluky way.
Yeah,
and
like
they
by
never
DQ.
defended or anything.
Those guys should not be in the
like,
Hall of Fame.